The Craig Ferguson Pants on Fire tour is on sale now. It's a new show, it's new material, but I'm afraid it's still only me, Craig Ferguson, on my own, standing on a stage, telling comedy words. Come and see me. Buy tickets. Bring your loved ones. Or don't come and see me. Don't buy tickets and don't bring your loved ones. I'm not your dad. You come or don't come, but you should at least know it's happening. And it is. The tour kicks off late September and goes through the end of the year and beyond. Tickets are available at thecraigfergusonshow.com/tour. They're available at thecraigfergusonshow.com/tour or at your local outlet in your region. My name is Craig Ferguson. The name of this podcast is Joy. I talk to interesting people about what brings them happiness.
My guest today is someone I first met 30 years ago. Good Lord. She's very, very talented and very clever and very funny. I always enjoy talking to her and I always enjoy listening to her. And I invite you to do that right now. Join me, my guest today, Lisa Loeb, everybody. Do you know what I'm very happy about, Lisa? And I'm going to tell you this right now. We both look exactly the same as we did when we first met. Well, you do actually, which is I've got a little squiggly around the edges, but you look exactly the same. You're still the youthful songstress that... I don't know if you remember this. We first met when I was doing the Drew Carey show. Do you remember that when you were on there?
Right. And I got to be a guitar player. I mean, I am one, but I got to play myself. Yeah. I've been seeing that on socials lately. Some of the people I forgot were on there, like Slash, Joe Walsh was there.
Joe Walsh and I became pals after that.
So cool. I've met him a couple times, but we didn't actually become like friends yet. I remember when we met him someplace, my husband and I, and we're like, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool. We get to meet you." And he's like, "Yeah, right?" Or he was like, "Yeah." And we're like, "Yeah, it is cool to meet you."
He's very, very fun. Once I was doing I got a job working on it. It's a long story, but I got a job doing a script with Mick Jagger. And so I had to leave the Drew Carey show and go and be on tour with Rolling Stones for a little bit. And everybody was saying, "Oh, tell Mick I said hi. Tell Mick I said hi." And then Joe was there and he said, "Tell Mick I said hi." And I went, "Oh yeah, you actually mean tell Mick I said hi." like yeah, I've known him for years.
That's so cool. I didn't know you. Did you? What happened with did anything happen with the Rolling Stones Mick Jagger thing?
No, we wrote the movie. I wrote two tracks. Mick had the idea for a screenplay.
Yeah.
And I had written a movie that he liked. So then he hired me to write this movie and I wrote two drafts of it. And then I got fired. And the movie never got made.
Wow.
But that happens.
He's taller than I thought. He's taller than I thought.
Really? I told you. I always thought he was a teeny.
Yeah, I know,
man.
Exactly. But he's taller than, like, I've met him once and then I also had a sighting of him. I met him in the studio once. I was visiting Don Was, the producer and
of course,
musician.
Yeah.
And he was like, he had been working with Mick Jagger a lot, I guess. Or he was in the studio, so he was like, "Let's go out there." And like we knock on the door, we're like, "Is he in there?" And we're our ears to the door, although you can't hear anything because it's a really huge studio, with like this soundproof doors. Yeah. But anyway, we're trying to listen, and he was in there, so we opened the door, and he was in there with what's his name from Eurythmics, Dave Stewart, who he was working with.
Dave Stewart, right.
And I was trying to be cool. So I first introduced myself to like the guy working at Pro Tools on the computer and the other assistant and then like the third assistant. And I was just going around the room. I wasn't trying to prioritize Mick Jagger and Dave Stewart. Mm-hmm. But then I got to Mick Jagger and he was, but I'm 5'2". So everybody seems, taller.
Well, see, this is an interesting lesson in perspective because the first time I met Mick Jagger, I had to fly to Istanbul because they were doing the Bridges to Babylon tour.
Oh, yeah.
And I met him there and I was very tired and jet lagged by the time I met him and he opened his hotel room door and I was so little that I said, "Oh, you're adorable." And I very much regretted saying that right away. But I'm 6',
and you said it to his face. You said it to his face.
Yeah, I said it out loud like an idiot.
Like
I still got the job. But
what are we thinking?
I don't know. I think sometimes when you meet super famous people and they've been super famous since like you were a kid,
Yeah.
then it's hard to compute. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're super famous, but I'm very comfortable talking with you because I've talked to you lots of different times over the years. And
Yeah.
but if you meet people who were famous when you were a kid, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I did that recently. Who did I talk to? And I walked up to them and I said, gosh, who was it? I have to remember. I said, oh my gosh, you're so cute. Can I squish your face? And it was somebody
Wow,
like,
okay.
what am I squishing? Like squishing their face with my hands. Who was that?
Yeah.
I don't think I was
Robert De
supposed to do
Niro?
that.
I'm going to say Robert De Niro.
It was De Niro. But I also, and I can't remember this. I can't remember if I met you first or if my parents somehow met you first backstage at one of your shows in Dallas.
They did.
I may have been on your show once and then maybe connected you guys. I don't know. And then I was on your show again. I don't remember. I can't remember.
I don't really remember the order, but I do remember your parents because people's parents come and see me.
Yeah.
To this day, it's a thing. I was doing a meet and greet after a show like a couple of weeks ago, and this lady with a very familiar face said to me, "Do you know my son? My son is an actor." And I went, "I know. What's your son's name?" And she said, "Wes." And I looked at her face and went, "You're Wes Bentley's mom?" She went, "Yeah. What? Have you heard of my son?" I went, "Of course I've heard of your son."
That's so sweet.
But it was very lovely, but Wes Bentley really looks like his mom.
Oh my gosh.
That's all I'm saying.
That's so amazing. You never know who you're going to meet. I'm trying to look to see on my phone who I met, who I squished their face. And I was like, I can't believe that was like the first. Oh, I know. It was, it was a music festival. It was this huge music festival. And last minute, I was playing there with my band like about a couple months ago. And at the last minute, they said, oh, hey, do you want to co-host this cooking segment right before you play? With this, TV chef and Jason, what's the kid from American Pie? This kid.
Jason Isaacs?
No,
I want to say Isaacs.
I'll tell you. And I had never met him before. And I was like, I'm terrible with names. That's another really... Oh, Jason Biggs. This guy.
Oh,
I'm showing you his... You know who I mean?
Yeah, I do know who you mean. I know Jason Biggs. And he would be okay with you squishing his face.
That guy.
Yes, of course.
He doesn't really look like that anymore.
Biggs, and I didn't know he did cooking segments.
Yeah,
does he do cooking segments?
He does cooking segments. Yeah, I think he had a cooking something. I don't know. And I had a cooking show on Food Network as well. And it was really fun. It's a very fun thing to do to cook on stage.
Do you still do that? Do you still do all the cooking stuff?
I do. I mean, in real life, I do. I think I do. Although my kids lately, they're like, chicken tikka masala again. I'm like, I'm trying hard. I'm a human. I'm not just like a mom. I'm a human. I'm trying really hard to make food. I think it's pretty good.
It's so funny to me because I hear you say, you talk to your kids and you're a mom, but to me, you're like, you're 28 years old and I see you in the Drew Carey show. It's like, I think of myself, I'm 42 and my kids are just little, but that's not true anymore.
No,
my kids have grown up and think I'm an asshole. And
You're the worst
weird.
person ever, right? Yeah, I feel like lately in Los Angeles, I've definitely felt things shifting, and it may be because I'm wearing black sweats a lot, just nice black sweatpants. I always feel like Oprah Winfrey at some point said, "Don't leave your house looking like I don't know what. Like you need to be basically put together." So I'm put together, like black sweats, sneakers, black t-shirt, and a lot of salespeople lately, when I'm with my kids, are like, "Mom, hey mom." They call me mom, like at Verizon. They're like, mom.
Yeah.
Mom, what do you think of that? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm the mom. I mean, I am.
Yeah. Do you know, once I was standing with one of my kids, one of my boys, I was standing at Gelson's.
Oh, yeah.
Gelson's up in...
Right near my house.
Right near your house, right. So I was
which
at
one
Gelson's.
are you at? Which one were you near?
Well, at that time, it was the one just like on the top, like at the bottom of Beechwood Canyon, right in that area.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm at the Gelsons and I was standing with my oldest son, who at the time I think was about 15.
Yeah.
And we were standing there and I saw this girl look at him as she was going by. And then she just went by. She looked at him and she went by and I went, oh my God, something just happened. Somebody just saw, it wasn't a guy with his kid. She saw a guy with his dad. I wasn't the guy anymore. Yeah. It was like he was the guy and I was the appendage. And I was like, oh man, that is a shift. But it is, it's just, it happens. It's the natural order of things. What is your kids now?
I was just about to ask you that. My daughter just turned 15. She's in ninth grade and my son is 12. How about you?
See, I'm a little further down the line. Well, maybe
I waited
little.
a long time.
Yeah, I did too. I waited a long time in between. My oldest is 23
Okay.
and my youngest is 13.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But Scottish people are like, these big orchids in the jungle that just explode every 10 years and everything around them gets pregnant.
Yeah.
That's what Scottish people do. They have sex once every 10 years. They have to go to their home planet like Spock. And then that's how they mate. So my boys are almost 10 years apart, 9.5 years apart.
Wow.
Which I think it works for them. My kids are, like my wife always says, it's like you have a Kirk and a Spock, but you better have the Spock first, because if you have the Kirk first, you won't have any other kids. You got to have Spock and then Kirk, and that's what we got. And
your wife's a big nerd, so your wife's a big nerd. She likes to talk about Star Trek.
She's reasonably nerdy.
I'm kidding. We have Star Wars wallpaper in our bathroom. That's a different Star show. I don't know, I've got two very unique different kids. Although when they were younger, my son was on the taller side and people used to think they were twins, but they're not. And now my daughter is taller than I am. And my son just yesterday stood next to me and he's a tiny bit taller than I am, I think. He's taller. But I knew at some point I was going to be looking up at them and pointing my finger saying, it's time for bed. You get to bed.
You have to behave yourself and don't smoke cigarettes.
I know my parents used to say, my mom would say, make sure you come home at 11, but be real quiet because we're going to be asleep. I was like, yeah, I'll be home at 11.
Yeah, I came in at 11, but you guys were asleep.
You were sleeping. So you didn't know. Yeah.
That's what were you a wild kid? You weren't that wild, were you? Were you a crazy kid? I was not a wild.
I was a very studious kid. I was a kid who had a million different things that I loved to do. I was a dancer and an actor and I was a DJ on the radio and I DJ'd parties and would carry in all these big crates of records. I was like I said, I did a lot of extracurriculars, acting and musical theater and music.
But you weren't a wild kid. But that was when
I did go
DJs
to
were.
Spain though. That was when DJs put records on and then gave out prizes. It was like a sock hop, but in the 80s. And I'd play like a deep cut from Duran Duran, and we'd play like the chauffeur instead of just Hungry Like the Wolf, which we danced to with the dance troupe at the boys' school. And I was right in the front row. And my friends who were in bands with me were right in the front row at this boys' school where we were dancing with our dance troupe from the girls' school to Hungry Like the Wolf, wearing leotards and tatters and rags. And I thought, you know what? I can't be in the dance troupe anymore doing these sexy dances at the boys' school. I can't do this.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was just not.
Girls from the girls' school dance for the boys at the boys' school.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. And it was 7:30 in the morning. I had to stop. I just had to focus on writing music and getting out of that. But I also, I went to Spain one summer between, sophomore and junior year. I lived in Spain.
Whereabouts in Spain did you go?
In Cuenca. It was a little town called Cuenca. A few hours outside of Madrid, and it had a famous museum called Las Casas Colgadas. And we lived with families, and we legally drank beer and rode on the back of little scooters and motorcycles. And
that's a very European thing.
It was so European. I was so European. So when I came back from Spain, I was way more European than I had been before I left for Spain. My friends and I loved to go see bands play, and we would sneak out. And I wasn't getting caught. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't getting caught either.
Oh, but you grew up in Dallas, though, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Dallas. And
so you'd see some pretty big acts coming through there when you were a kid.
We saw everybody. Well, I don't know why I keep thinking. I was thinking Dire Straits. The Police, Ghost in the Machine tour. I remember seeing Grace Jones at this place called the Stark Club. And I also remember, that might have been after high school. And then I remember seeing, what's the band name? You Spin Me Right Round, Baby, Right Round.
Oh, Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive.
Pete Burns.
At the same place, we went to go see them at the Stark Club, this club that we probably shouldn't have been on. We were probably underage, but we would sneak in. And it was the first time I was like, wait, there's no band. He's singing with the microphone and I can hear the music, but there's no musicians. And I realized that is a track. He's singing to a track. But that was fun. But I saw so many bands play. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. I loved it.
I did a lot of that too when I was a kid.
Who'd you see?
There was I saw everybody, man. I saw Bowie on the Low tour. I saw Queen.
I saw Queen. Oh, before?
Yeah.
Before what?
Before A Night at the Opera. I saw them
What?
on the Sheer Heart Attack. I was like a young guy. I'm 62 years old. I'm like 100
I'm close.
years old.
I'm close. I was at Live Aid in London. I happened to be studying acting that summer in London.
You really?
At the National Youth Theatre of Great Britain, making an American musical. I don't know why they had us doing an American musical. But anyway, I said, there's this big show coming through called Live Aid. And I got a couple of friends with me to go on the tube. I'm so British now. And to go we bought tickets and we went and we saw, we were there. We saw everybody, Bowie and Thomas Dolby playing with Bowie, no, not Thomas Dolby. Yeah, Thomas Dolby played with Bowie on that show, which I didn't know.
Right? Was that, She Blinded Me with Science.
Yeah,
that was
he's
Thomas
really
Dolby, right?
Flat Earth.
Yeah,
but
really
wait, who else did you see?
I saw the Pistols. I saw the Stranglers. I saw the Damned. I saw the I mean, like
I never saw
used
the
to
Who
come through Glasgow.
That's amazing.
Hawkwind with Lemmy.
Oh, Lemmy.
Yeah, I saw Hawkwind with Lemmy when I think that was my first concert actually when I was 13. Wow. I saw Hawkwind when they were playing Silver Machine, and they used to have a dancer called Stacia, who was a lady who would dance with her, and she would take her top off. And we were 13-year-old boys, and we would see Stacia dancing with her top off. It was
you loved music. You loved going to see music.
I loved music, and like all boys of that age, I loved Stacia as well. She was. I don't think that's allowed now. I think that would be frowned upon in modern.
Well, it depends on who's doing it. Depends on who's doing it.
Maybe
it depends on who's decide. It depends on who decides to do it. If the artist decides, it may be different. I went to go see Billie Eilish last night with my daughter.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing, actually. I've never seen,
pretty talented,
and I saw, not to necessarily compare them, but they're two big arena shows. I saw Taylor Swift in this last Eras tour, which was amazing and beautiful, and I've seen Pink, and it's amazing, but the lighting, it was so unique. I'd never seen anything like that. It's very intense, but she kept her clothes on for sure.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I mean,
but if she had decided not to, it probably also would have been okay. But she would have had to decide.
I think that's good. Well, I don't know who was deciding for anything. I think a lot of people, when I saw Hawkwind when I was 13, I wasn't. But I think a lot of people were on very powerful narcotics at that point in their lives, and their decision-making process may have been impaired.
The drugs were deciding.
The drugs were decided. Yeah. It's funny that it's a real, I mean, quite seriously though, it's a trap for young musicians, or used to be. It seems to me that young musicians now are a little more ambitious and work-focused, career-focused than they used to be. Is that true, do you think?
I think in some ways, I think they are, and I think they understand this concept that they're going to have many jobs. It used to be, I'm sure it was the same with you, being in entertainment and comedy and acting and writing. You didn't want to say like, oh, and I'm also, I work at this store, or I also created this idea, or I also teach, or, now kids do a lot of different things. Like they might be teaching and then they're in their band, or they might have a real job and then they also have an entertainment job, and it's not taboo. But I think back in those days, you wanted to do one thing or you weren't serious. You were a dilettante.
That's right. Yeah, you were a tourist if you weren't fully committed to it. I don't know, man. It seems such a funny thing because I came up being, I was a drummer, so I always kind of thought that was going to be my life. I would just be in bands my whole life, and then I would probably die when I was 25, which I think if I'd stayed drumming, that's possibly true. But
wait, what kind of music were you playing?
I was playing punk rock music.
Okay.
Which was useful for me because
I've heard of that genre.
It's a genre that was popular amongst the young folks when I was young, and it was very forgiving of the lifestyle I had at the time. So it fit right into my leisure activities.
Yeah.
To be amongst punk rock artists, it worked really well for me. But I don't think it has any real longevity about it. I don't know if there are even punk rock bands around now.
There are.
Even if they're.
But now they're like,
really?
Yeah, the guys that I know who are in more of the kind of punky bands, it's more of a sound than a lifestyle. it's more of like
Yeah.
the emotion and the sound. And some of the guys I know who are in the more punk bands, they are straight edge. They call it straight edge. They're super sober, very pro
Right.
sober. I am not straight edge. I just don't drink very much. I never get around to it. And I just am too busy. Every once in a while, I keep trying to drink champagne more. And then I'm really tired the next day because I had champagne. And
That's
that's
fabulous.
It's very,
I think that's good.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not, that's always, my friends and I used to make up, when the New Year came around, we try to make some kind of a promise based on a rhyme with the number, like in 2020, well, it wasn't a rhyme, but I was like, in 2020, I'm going to see people in person because like vision, like 2020. And then that was the year of the COVID. So
yeah. Very
but
different.
Starting in 1994, I remember my friend Amy and I said more in 94, which was like more drinking. And we just
Right.
never got back around to it yet. That was 30 years ago.
2024,
I tried it. 2025, well, stay alive.
2025, let me drink until I'm not alive.
Yeah, there you, well,
then
yeah,
that might be
that
too
might
much
be too much.
drinking.
Yeah.
I
It's a
don't
lot
know.
of words, and I don't want to do that.
But I remember, do you remember that times once I bumped into you in, I think it may have been even in Dallas airport or maybe Denver or something.
Yes,
Do you remember that?
That's right.
Like
I feel
you
like
were
Denver, maybe, because maybe they had all
Yeah.
those great stores like Fudge.
I don't remember the fudge
I don't.
store,
I just think I'm thinking of Denver like that. They've got a really good airport with like bookstores and Fudge. I feel like last time I've been there, the last couple times they've been doing construction, but maybe that's the Atlanta
Yes.
or Atlanta. Was it Atlanta?
Was it Atlanta?
It was one of
I
the
don't
places
know.
where you
It
could
was
like
a
get stuck
big
there for a
airport.
while. Yeah.
But I remember because you were walking through looking very romantic and clever, and your guitar was strapped to your back. And I was like, oh my God, look at that girl. She's so great. She kind of like just lives her fucking life, man. And I was so impressed by how you were just like traveling from one place and going to another place and living the vagabond life and playing music. I was very jealous,
That's very
but I'm
sweet.
very impressed at the same time. Because I think by then I was
Well, you were
starting
on
to
your book
work
tour.
for- That's right.
You were on your book tour.
That's right. I was selling a book. Which, you got to write books. That's a thing.
Oh yeah, that's hard to
part of it now.
write books. I just
Well,
wrote a
they're
book,
so-
but it's not a long. It's a children's book, but I'm waiting to hear back from publisher. Is a publisher.
You got into that a little bit with the music as well, though. Haven't
Yeah.
you been doing like the recent thing with you've been
25
working
for
with-
20 years or more, I have been making children's music. I can't believe it. I know somebody said she just got into children's music. It was in some Billboard thing, and I was like, well, it was cool to be in the company of John Legend, who just made a children's record, a really beautiful great children's record. But I was like, I think I've been doing this for 20 years now. Let me
That's
see,
amazing.
Lisa
So you were
Loeb.
doing it before you had your own kids.
Oh, way before. I didn't even know about kids. I wasn't really, it was, oh my gosh, 21 years ago, I put out that record, the first kids record. I was asked by Barnes and Noble. It was like a cool opportunity, like a neat business thing. They said, will you do a record that's different from your regular records and we'll sell it exclusively at Barnes and Noble? And I thought that was great. It's hard to sell things and have
Yeah.
people know about them. And I thought that was great. I love books, bookstores. And so we ended up deciding to make a children's record as my thing that was different. And really,
Right.
it was because I'm a nostalgic person and I liked my childhood and I wanted to sort of live inside that world and make music like the kind of things we listened to or I listened to when I was little. There was a lot of music that sounded like 70s soft pop and summer camp songs and grown-up songs that you couldn't tell if they were for grown-ups or kids. Like I'd watch this TV show Fernwood Tonight or the Sonny and Cher show. Things that were like funny and whimsical and weird and the old Sesame Street. I wanted to make stuff like that. So I started making kids records. And I had kids way later.
You made a really great version of Big Rock Candy.
Oh yeah, that's my friend Liz. That was my first kids record. So my friend Liz
That was
produced the
great.
record. Elizabeth Mitchell. She was my freshman roommate. We had a band together for 6
Right.
years. In college, like a regular band, we had a band
Right.
in college and beyond. And then we went our separate directions. And she is in it like an indie rock band. Her husband was in a punk band. And And she also made kids music, very well-known kids music. And she's so good at it. And I asked if she would make this record with me. So we made that first record together. And she, we did it at their studio, and she's so good at making songs like that. So that was the first kids record, but I had no
That's a weird
kids.
song, Big Rock Candy Mountain, because I always think that's laced with such terrible sadness and weirdness about it, because it's like a hobo kind of, hopeful song about it's going to be all right, don't worry.
But
and,
it's not. Somebody's dog is going to die. Yeah. The fire will go out. But it's so sad. I love that really longing, sad, it's the dream in the sky, like right before the person dies.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Scandinavia?
Yes.
Have you been to Stockholm?
Yes, I have.
Have you been to the Children's Museum in Stockholm?
No, I have to go back. I went to go see the Titanic, the movie, and I came out. I hadn't seen it. I saw it like 2 years after it came out in Stockholm, and we came out at like 11 at night, and it was still light out.
Still light, yeah.
Wait, the Children's Museum
in Stockholm is one of the saddest places I have ever been in my life. It is so traumatizing.
Why?
They have a children's story in Sweden. I don't even want to talk about how sad it is, but it's basically about a couple of brothers who starved to death, and how it's just dreadful. But they're very fond of it in Sweden, and they've got a little train that takes you around all the puppets.
Ooh, the puppets?
And as I was going, there's puppets and little things, and then you go around, and then at the end of it, everybody's dead. You're like, what the hell is this? What's wrong with you people? And then you talk to Swedish people like, oh yeah, it's a very beautiful museum. We're like, what's wrong with you people? Everybody's dead. And they're like, yes, it's sad, but this is life.
I think about Sweden a lot because that was the first place we stayed at a hotel called the Lidmar Hotel a couple of times, and it was very Scandinavian. It was like being at IKEA.
They do that
like a long time ago, and I remember I was like, what I liked? They had the king size bed, but with two separate coverlets, two separate comforters, so you can have your own covers,
your own space,
space in a king size bed. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's because they're nude a lot.
Oh.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think
the snow, like they go in the snow nude, and then they do long distance at skiing. They were going to take me cross country skiing. They promised me blueberry soup. I never got it.
Well, probably for the best. I think that's what the people died of in the museum. They died of blueberry soup poisoning, but they have marvelous thighs. So because of their cross-country skating.
Yeah. And I felt short. I was short. All the women there that I knew were very tall, and the men were shorter.
Yeah, that is true over there. Yeah, short, handsome men who, if they make it through childhood, live to a ripe old age. I think
with nice thighs. Yeah.
Beautiful thighs.
I heard that on the Today Show. It's all about the thigh meat. That's what they said on the Today Show one summer. The shorts were getting shorter for men, and the guy, the stylist, was like, "It's all about the thigh meat this year." I was like, I don't know.
I can't believe that a person would say that.
I know, it's awesome. On like the Today Show, it was good.
Yeah, I feel like that's an unusual choice of words to describe a human's legs.
Yeah.
But you know what? Thigh meat is fine. I work on my own thigh meat. But did you? When you had your own kids, did it change the kids' music for you? Did you? Because
yes,
yeah, I thought it might.
It changed a lot. It changed so much because I started off writing. I made a handful of records. I made the record with Liz, which had a lot of songs like Big Rock Candy Mountain and some original songs, and then I wasn't sure if I was making more kids' music, but I was getting a lot of people asking me, "What's your next kids record?" And I made a summer camp songs record called Camp Lisa, which also inspired a kids musical, an off-Broadway show. And I loved summer camp, and we wrote all these songs like The Disappointing Pancake that was inspired by On Top of Spaghetti, like a long inanimate food object adventure song. All these songs, and I loved them so much, and they had all these words. And then I made songs for Movin' and Shakin', which was also a book, and Silly Songs, which was also a book. And then I actually had kids who were old enough to talk. And I started playing more kids' concerts, and it turned out kids don't really want to hear a lot of songs with a lot of words that they don't know. I was filling in the set with songs like the ABCs and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And they were like grown-ups. They were kind of like, oh, finally something I know. Like finally something I can listen to and sing along to. Like, ugh, all those other songs you're playing, they're just getting bored. So I made like alphabet, like I started making nursery rhymes and alphabet songs and things like that kids actually wanted to hear. And then I decided to do what I wanted to do.
I got into that with my kids when They Might Be Giants did those kids' albums.
Super cool.
Which were, my kids listened to your stuff and they listened to They Might Be Giants because I wouldn't let them listen to like regular kids plinkety-plonk music.
The plinkety-plonk, You listen to the real music though.
Not allowed.
Yeah, unless it's like hilariously on purpose. But yeah, my kids listened to, they loved, my son would cry. It's either my son or my daughter would cry if I didn't play them September by Earth, Wind and Fire. If I changed the station, they're like, put it back on. They wanted to hear real music.
My youngest was like that about Atmospheres by Joy Division.
They want to hear.
Don't walk away in silence. Play it again.
Yeah, you're like, really? Okay. And also, what's that? If you could turn back time to the good old days. Who's that? When Mama sang, it's they loved and Foo Fighters and
All right, I thought you were saying if I could turn back time.
I'm listening to Cher's autobiography right now. It's so good.
Love Cher. Oh, did she read her own autobiography?
She does the intro and says, "I'm not going to read this. She had dyslexia. She said, I can't do a Cher voice, but she said she wasn't going to read it. And she has other people. And then I'm a little confused because one of the people who's reading it has a very slow reading of her book. So I speed it up because I'm like, I can't wait for the pauses. And the other person is either Cher or what I thought it was the woman who played Cher in the movie who sounds like Cher. Remember there was like a Cher biopic at some point a long time ago? And this woman sounds like Cher. Or it is Cher, and I was confused. I thought Cher said she wasn't going to read it herself.
Well, that's the thing about Cher, though. She zigs when we zag. She might have said, I'm not going to read it. And then she is going to read it. But she's Cher. She can do what she wants. You ever met Cher?
I have. And I cried. I met two of my childhood people that I loved so much, my childhood music heroes. I met Cher and Olivia Newton-John the same day at a music festival. God. And I have a tear in my eye. I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Cher was so cool. She had such crazy outfits and she did a cover of Jimi Hendrix, Hey Joe, and her outfits when I was a kid, we dressed our Barbies up as Sonny and Cher, especially Cher and Olivia Newton-John.
It's so funny.
Have you met her before? Have you spoken to her?
Who, Cher?
Yeah.
Yeah, I met Cher once years and years ago. I was doing this dumb music show in the UK and I was hosting it. And for some reason, she agreed to do this little sit-down interview thing. I could barely speak because, I'd never, this is before I did late night. I mean, by the time I did late night, I was so jaded and I'd met everybody. It didn't matter. But I was like, I think it was like 27 or something. And I met Cher and she was very, very kind. That's the only thing I remember, that she was helpful. And I think it was because I was so non-threatening as an individual.
You're like
she was very kind and very patient and helped the interview happen. But I don't know where that interview is now or where it is, but I just remember her being really lovely and gracious.
What was that like though in the 90s? Like that was in the 90s, right? Or late 80s, 90s?
Yeah. So, it would be early 90s,
so in the 90s, I felt like there was a lot of coolness from the journalists and the TV people, trying to be cool, like cool music people.
That's true, yeah.
So how did that feel from your end being an interviewer back then? Like, I feel like when you were a late night talk show host, you have a sense of humor and you can kind of nudge people because you have a funny sense of humor. Yeah. But and you can joke around with them and give them a hard time, but it's kind, it's kind. You're doing it to be kind and funny.
Right.
But back then when you're interviewing at people and you're a music person, were you trying to be cool? Like, how did that work? Especially when you meet somebody that you're a fan of, like trying to be cool, but also doing your job, but also trying not to be too into anything because you're cool. Like, how did that feel?
It's a youth thing. It's funny. I talked to, the film critic A.O. Scott at the New York Times. So I was talking to him about this because he used to say when he was young, if he saw a bad movie when he was young, he would take it as a personal affront. Like he would get so angry if he saw a bad movie. And he looks back on it now and thinks, what the hell was wrong with me? and I feel a little bit like that about my attitude back then when I was younger, that I thought I was so, I don't know, important or I was very, it's not that I was aggressive with anyone, because I wasn't, but I think I thought I was cooler than everybody else. And then I think by the time you get to about mid-30s, you realize you're nowhere near as cool as many of the people you talk to. And then by the time you have your own children, you realize you're not cool at all.
And then after that, you're just like, oh, you don't care. You just don't. It's not a concern. It's not on your mind.
It really isn't. It kind of becomes something else, I think. It becomes about, like, if I have a very good friend who does has a similar art and a similar job to you. Do you know Katie Tunstall?
Oh yeah, she's great.
Right. So Katie and I are very good friends, and I watch Katie sometimes play, and I just love to watch her play. I just love to watch her lose herself in the thing, and I feel the same way about actors that I enjoy, or actors and musicians, or even or comedians, or painters. Even if you look at a painting and you can kind of forget about who's doing it and just enjoy what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's fabulous. I think that the art becomes more important than the artist to me as I get older. It's like the sensation of it, particularly now as well, if it's live.
Oh yeah.
I'm very analog friendly now. I keep saying to my kids, put the phone down, put the phone down, put the phone down, because allow your memory to remember it rather than the phone.
Yeah.
Why would you trust the phone will remember it properly, but that's not the best way to remember things sometimes. Maybe it's better to remember them through the haze of, something else, like actual human memory.
Yeah,
rather than...
I need a little bit of both, though, because I've been recently going through all my old photo albums and finally starting to have them digitized, so that I can easily...
Right.
Also now, because with social media and connecting with fans, it's a fun and easy way to have things to talk about and share memories. It's fun to say, like, oh my gosh, I met Cher. Look at this picture. This is so cool. But at this and like last night at the Billie Eilish concert, it was stunning. Visually, it was stunning, and also her voice and the music. Even they had so much bass in some of the songs, you could feel your body rattling in this big arena, and a lot of people had their phones out to try to capture the pictures. And on one hand, I wanted to capture it back. Then I was like, why? I did exactly what you said. I just sat and I just took it in. But but finally at one point I did take a picture because it was sweet. She brought her brother Phineas up for a couple of songs, and it was just so sweet. Like the two siblings and the mom I know was sitting across the arena, and I was like, this is so sweet. I want to remember at all that I was there, because I will go through my phone and find photos. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. That happened.
Yeah, well, that's true. You're right.
But you're right also. I spend the majority of my time either stressed about my kids being on devices or, on one hand, I get there's a million things that are interesting on the phone, but also I'm like, I am letting their brains rot. Like I'm not, what's going on? They need to sit and they need to stand in line at the post office for a while, or, one of those things.
No, it's funny though. I mean, I think one of the weird things about being the parent of children that are getting older is you start to worry about someone else's use of phones, or someone else's drug intake, or someone else's alcohol use. Yeah. It's like, I've worried about my own, kind of adult behavior since I was a kid, but now you have to worry about, everything has fentanyl in it. And,
oh, well, that's really scary.
Oh my God.
Do you remember when you were a kid? That's the other thing that's strange is like seeing, my daughter get to an age that I remember I was a person. When I was 14, 15, I was a person. Mm-hmm. And I'm still really good friends with my friends from that age group. Like we're still really, really good friends. So if I don't remember something, my friend will tell me, like, we still remember conversations we had when we were 14, 15, 16. Do you remember yourself when you were that age? Like, do you remember being a person?
I do. I mean, I don't remember it very fondly.
Mm.
I mean, it wasn't the happiest time in my life. My early adult life was not something I look back on particularly with a particular
Oh yeah, I read
degree
your
of
book.
affection.
I read your book.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. Now that I'm thinking about it, I did read it. Of course, I did. I'm going to read it
Yeah,
again. Did you read it? Can I get it on
I
Audible?
did read it, and
Okay, so now I'm going to listen
I
to you
wrote.
tell me it again.
Yeah, I did. You read your book?
My book, my book is not out yet. I've got
Yeah.
two
Well,
books that are just
are you
music.
going to read it?
It's short. Hopefully it'll be out, and I don't even know if it'll be. It's a kid's book, so it'll be short. But it's
Will you write an autobiography?
I don't know. I was thinking about it at some point, but I'm so private. I don't, and I've got siblings. I don't need to tell their stories. But at one point, I was thinking of telling a story through food and eating, and food. But I don't know. It's so
I think
hard.
that's a pretty nice. That's a nice way of doing it because people connect and remember things like that. It's
Yeah.
a good way. Like if I was doing the autobiography now, I look back on it. Weirdly enough, I kind of looked at it fairly recently. The one I wrote when we met on the book tour, which is about 10 years ago or something or more. And I looked at it recently. Someone had brought it to a show for me to sign, and I kind of looked at a couple of pages, and I was like, I don't know if I would put it like that now. I don't know if I would be quite so unguarded about that now because I don't know. I feel like information, you have to be a little more careful about it now. You don't feel it can be, I don't know. I just don't, especially about other people. I wouldn't talk about other people as much. I think that's unfair,
I know I wanted to do a TV show or even, well, I guess it would be perfect for a YouTube thing. I had the idea before YouTube was really a thing, but I meet so many really interesting musicians who are in other people's bands, who play in these amazing bands. And I thought, oh, it'd be so cool to have these guys, talk to them about their experiences and just they have crazy stories. But then I was like, but they're not exactly their stories to tell,
Right.
But I don't know how that works. Like I was reading Barbara Streisand's book. I was listening to it. I've listened to about, 15 hours of it. It's it's like a 40-hour book.
Right.
And then I realized she was going so in depth on all the movies that she directed or that she had been a part of. And I realized I needed to go back and watch some of those movies. If she's going to go that in depth, I want to be able to know what she's talking about and also not have a spoiler. But anyway, she talks about people, a lot of people. And she's like completely honest. Also, Henry Winkler. I just read his autobiography.
Oh, he's the greatest.
Yeah.
I love
and I listened
Henry.
to him. I met him once. I was very excited about it.
Oh, he's the nicest man. He is what a diamond. I mean, people still say to Henry, hey, Fonzie, which is like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And he'll still go, hey, and be nice to them.
But to hear him tell
like
that story about I didn't know he was a Juilliard trained actor,
Yeah,
I just liked him and, he was this guy from Fonzie. He was Fonzie. He was from,
Fonzie,
he's from Happy Days. But yeah, to watch his career, to hear about his ups and downs and for him to still have that kindness, but still have an edge. He has an edge. He's not like an edgy guy. Like he's not going to be mean to you on an airplane, but like,
he's smart though. He's very smart and very, very quick mind and a lovely man. I remember when we had to send something over to his house, when we were doing late night, we had to send some form over to his house for him to sign. And we sent a PA over and the PA came back after we were over and he said, Henry Winkler gave me a sandwich. He said he got to the house and his family were all having sandwiches. And he said, come on in and have a sandwich. And they gave this kid a sandwich and it was next to him. And it's always kind of stuck with me. It was like, there's absolutely nothing in it for Henry Winkler to give a PA a sandwich. But they had some sandwiches and they were nice. But I just know, it just seemed very nice to me.
I love that.
But I've always liked Henry. I always thought he was such a lovely man. But you raise an interesting point with Henry because Henry had a very specific, huge entry into his career.
Yes.
When he did the Fonzie. And you had that, must be 30 years.
It was 30 years ago, yeah.
You kidding me? Since that song? Is it really?
1994.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy.
But it was a huge it must have been a huge gear shift for you. For being, you're a young girl at that time. You were a young woman. You're what, like early, mid-20s?
Yeah.
And then suddenly
24,
that
25. Yeah. It was, it didn't feel, on one hand, it felt like a big change because It was. I mean, having a song on the radio, you hear hearing your music come through the radio with those DJs, with the compression on their voice, like Lisa Loeb, blah, blah, blah. And also being in the context of other people you think of as being pop stars, Mariah Carey, and I don't know, I always think of Mariah Carey. And I was a singer-songwriter in New York with a band, and we'd play. But I don't know if you had the same thing, but I had been working on it for so long. I felt like I'd been writing songs since I was a little kid. I'd been writing like real songs since I was in 8th grade or 9th grade. And then I started writing on guitar, and I'd play my songs in assembly. And then my friend and I had that band in college, my friend Liz Mitchell. And we had a great following, and we recorded our music, and there were some record companies getting interested in college. And so it was like step by step by step, going along to get to the place where the song ended up on the radio. In retrospect, it was a huge thing. In retrospect, like the fact that Ethan Hawke, passed the song along and they actually put it in the movie, that's rare when things actually happen.
I know.
And then it actually got played on the radio, and then we actually made a music video, and it actually became popular. And
do you still enjoy playing it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's a lot of other songs like that. It's funny. I went on tour. I did a few weeks with Lyle Lovett recently, like in May.
Right.
And we did the thing where we both sit on stage and we talk and we hang out, and then we play music. Kind of like if we both just took a guitar out and started playing a song.
Right.
But one of the shows, and you never had a set list. He'd play a song and talk, and we'd talk, and I'd play a song. And I had a list of songs that I wanted to remember to play because I'll just forget song. I don't know. I need some reminders. I got a call from the promoter the next day saying that they were disappointed I hadn't played my song Stay. I played like 9 songs that night. I totally forgot. Like there's so many other songs that I could play. But I do love playing it because people want to hear it. I don't dislike it. I like it. And it definitely is a regular kind of one of my songs. It's not, some people get hit songs that are really outside of what they want to play, and they're like, oh, I can't believe I have to play that song. I don't mind playing it. I like it. It's and because now it has so much history attached to it and people have a really nostalgic feeling about it, I enjoy playing it. That's really, it's amazing to be in that circle of me singing, a ton of people singing with me on that song. But it's not like my favorite song to sing, but I'm also happy to do it.
I think also, though, it's a sign of maturity in an artist when you make peace with early success. I remember, circling back to, when I told you when I worked with Mick Jagger years ago, but, they were singing, Sympathy for the Devil and Satisfaction. And these songs were, 30 years old at that point, and I said, do you ever get sick of playing them? And he went, no, because when you go out, it's magical. It's I'm happy that it has become part of everything we did, and I kind of loved that. He said, but there was a time when I didn't want to sing it, and I think that's you feel like you have to escape who you were before so that you don't get caught,
right?
But I think that then you realize you're not caught. It's just who you were then, and who you were then is part of who you are now. And it's
you have to do it all basically because you have to feed your own soul and feed yourself.
Of course.
It's funny. I was talking to I was at this event yesterday for an organization called Best Buddies, and Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue was there. We were talking.
Of course, yeah.
And I got to get back together with this guy. Like we really, I had met him before, but we had a really nice conversation. And part of it was about this kind of thing, about writing music and how hard it is, and how writing songs and lyrics and music, it's so hard, but we still love doing it and continuing to try to get better at it. And and how funny it is, how much pressure you put on yourself to like write new songs. But when you go play these concerts, people just want to hear what they know. Even as musicians ourselves, we're like, oh no, don't play a new song. Oh God, like people are getting, you're most excited as a musician to play those songs. And then the audience is going to get beer. And so you have to be really tricky the way you put the songs in. And on one hand, it's kind of like a backup plan, like, worst case scenario, I play all the songs that people already know. even though it's like from 25, 30 years ago, or even some of the songs I wrote in the 80s and I put them on my records and people still want to hear them. And that's fine. I want to know I'm the same way with a lot of my favorite artists. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
But then also you're like, but I also want to play you some of these new songs and hopefully you'll like them too. But
it's an interesting, because it's kind of the polar opposite of what you experience as a stand-up comedian. Like, I really wish I could do that joke again, because now I could do it much better, and I know how to.
Though?
Like,
no,
you
like
can.
I have a question about that. Well, now, especially with cell phones, it's such a drag. Like, talking about Lyle Lovett, I opened for him 25 years ago, and I saw him tell these stories. And I realized what a craft that was. And I had this thing in my head, like, I can never say the same thing. I can never set up a song the same way. Everything always has to be different. And I remember Dweezil Zappa would say, his dad never played the same show and all the solos were different. And I thought, I don't solo in my music. I just play songs, but my soloing is my talking, like my banter, and it's not going to be different. But then I started realizing to create a story is so fun. But then when you see the same people right in the audience and you finally figured out how to ride the audience and the waves of the story and embellish it or whatever, and there's the same people right in front, or they videotape it, you're like, like, how do you deal with that as a comedian? I think you can tell people want to hear that story. They want to hear that.
You can tell this. I feel like you can tell the same story until it's being televised, until it's on a special, or until it's on the internet. Then you can't do it again. And that's my personal belief about it, is that once I've told it and it's been out there, which is annoying. Yeah. Because it's almost like if you recorded the song, then you can never play it live.
It's terrible because when you get there and you get to that place where you're like saying something that's just off the cuff, but it's not. But it's so good.
And that's what's so frustrating about it, because I look at material that I did as a stand-up 10, 15, 20 years ago and go, I could really make that work a lot better now. That was actually a very good idea, but I didn't do it properly, and I would like to do it properly now. But you kind of can't, because people know what's coming, and that ruins what it is. It takes the melody away if they understand what it is.
Just do it for people like over 55. They will not remember. They will not. They won't remember.
Well, that might be the case.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I say this all the time because I keep thinking of this as the example. But like, I met Barry Manilow at an event, and I was so excited, and I got my picture taken with him, and I love the song Mandy, and I just gushed, and I was so excited. And then I was going through my photo albums, a couple months later, and there I was, the first time I met Barry Manilow for the first time, in another photo from 15 years ago. I had no recollection, and it was important to me.
What's weird? I have something
remember.
Very similar. I had this thing. Have you ever seen the documentary Becoming Spock? It's about Leonard Nimoy.
I should, because I love Leonard Nimoy. Yeah. I may have seen it, actually. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I watched it. It was made by his son, I think.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful documentary.
Saw it at a screening even. I don't know.
Oh, it's a gorgeous film. But I watched it, and then afterwards I said to my wife, gosh, what a lovely man. I really wish I'd had him on the late night show. And we looked it up, and he was on twice. Oh my God. I was like,
see?
How could that be a thing?
I know. But that's why it's good to have friends around. I know my friend Amy's like, remember that time we were in that limo with Adam Sandler? He gave us a ride. And I was like, what? Tell me about that. What happened then? He said, yeah, I remember Paul Rudd was talking to you. I'm like, he was? What did he say? Yeah. Like, what happened?
But that's the weirdest, especially when I look at like late night. I was like 10 years I did that show. And people will, I'll see footage from that. I'm like, I have zero recollection of that conversation or even that evening.
Oh my gosh.
I'm right there. And it's me talking. And I'm like, I honestly don't remember. It's a little weird.
Yeah, I do an interview. I have a radio show, a daily radio show on Sirius XM, 90s on 9. And one of the things I added to it was called Where They Are Now. And it's an interview segment where I talk to people who you might know from the 90s, but they're still doing things today. And it was inspired by Spinal Tap, when they're all sitting around the radio and their old song comes on the radio. It might be like Give Me Some Money or Cups and Cakes or something. And they're all sitting around and they're all like enjoying it because they're on tour. it's so cool to hear their old song, and the DJ comes on and from the where are they now files, like, I wonder if they're still alive, and they're just like on a tour promoting a current project. And that happens. When you travel, you might sit next to somebody, they're like, oh, so didn't you used to be a musician? You're like, something like you're checking into a hotel and your name is on the marquee across the street, and the young gal's like, didn't you used to be a musician? You're like, yeah, I still am,
all the time.
And there's my name right there over on the marquee, right? Like, I'm going with my guitar. You're at the airport. I'm going with my guitar to Wisconsin, because I'm playing a show there. They're like, oh, that's so great. Good luck with that. But anyway, so I started a radio show thing called Where They Are Now, which is a take on Where Are They Now? And because it's a kinder way of saying, yes, I know you're from a certain material from the 90s, probably. But same, we play some reruns, and they're like, yeah, this week you're rerunning your interview with so-and-so. And I'm like, I got to talk to Boyz II Men? That's so cool. And it's right there in the hard drive. I had a great conversation with them. No recollection. I researched them for hours.
That's exactly what's going to happen to us now, because we're done.
I'm not going to remember speaking. I'll see you. I'll be like, didn't I see you eating fudge at the airport in
the fudge at Denver
Colorado
Airport.
and
Denver, famous for its fudge
at the airport.
In the airport. Lisa, it's a delight to see. I'm sorry that it's been so long, and very good luck with the children's book.
Thank you. I hope it comes out.
Yeah, I hope it comes out too. I have a feeling it will work out fine.
Yeah.
You're delightful, and please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I hope to see you at Gelson's.
Sure.
Bring your coupon.
Yeah, well, you know me, Scottish coupon. Good day.
Thank you.